of the pioneers of guerrilla journalism
Yes.
in Africa. And in
Okay.
fact, you received accolades,
Yeah.
awards, you became renowned for that.
Yeah.
What inspired your interest in guerrilla journalism? I know in your book, in the Adventures of
The
Guerrilla
guerrilla
Journalists,
journalism.
you reveal some of these things. But I would like you to talk about.
Well, we didn't set out to do guerrilla journalism. It wasn't as if we met somewhere and said, "Oh, let us do
Was it
guerrilla."
pre-planned?
It was not pre-planned. We wanted to do journalism, the normal, regular journalism, report, investigate, write, publish, and all of that. That was it. But we wanted to do a journalism that was not going to be the one that pressing, that massages ego. We wanted to do a journalism that, ask questions. Why did you do this? When? For what reasons? Should you have done it that way? Shouldn't you have done it this way? We were questioning on the military authorities. We were even questioning their right to even seize power. So it got to a head in 1990. Let me just say, that took me around the entire country, going to investigate things, issues of corruption, riots and protests, even some Junkun war, and all of that, So, 1990, we woke up one morning to the banner headline in the Daily Times, where Babangida had to say that it amazes him why Nigeria has not yet collapsed. And he was military president at that time. So, we gathered that week to look at what we're going to publish next week in African Concord. We started looking for story ideas, and we pointed out, look, how can the president make this kind of statement? There must be something that we don't know. So we now decided to look at the entire government and its policies. So we look at policies on education, transportation, agriculture, the economy itself. We look at the issue of corruption. So we assigned all of these stories out. And my colleague there, Mr. Babafemi was asked to anchor the whole thing. So we wrote the story. Everybody wrote his own section of it, that will give the story an overview. And we tagged it as IBB giving up. Had a big banner headline with a good photograph of Babangida in front of it. And we thought we had done our job for the week. And 2 days after the magazine came out, the military people stormed our office in Concord.
Were you expecting that?
We were not. We just thought this was a regular story. Yeah. We were just probing, the mind that could be atop of governance and who was, expressing, amazement at the fact that the country has not collapsed. So we didn't expect it at all. If there are stories that we talk and us trouble, that wasn't the story. We're not revealing anything that is not known to everybody. But I think because the way it was packaged, the language and the pungency of the thoughts that we put into it really got at Babangida, and he then sent the soldiers to go and seal up the offices that contained not just African Concord, Weekend Concord, National Concord, Amana, Railway, whatever it's all of that, including one of the biggest bakeries at that time, Wonder Loaf, So they sealed the entire place up. And what occurred to me immediately after that was that, look, this is injustice. This is not fair. And I ran to Shiganova in Anthony Village, and I told Shiganova that, I wanted to challenge this, the government on this. And they looked at me and said, look, tell me, don't come and waste my time. You're a young man. You are employed by Abiola. If Abiola call you tomorrow to go and drop the case, that would have meant that I wasted my time. I said, look, Chief, I'm never going to listen to Abiola, even if he calls me. I want to go to court. He then called some of his legal aides and said, look, they come and be a witness. They came and he said, okay, go and prepare the case. We'll go to court tomorrow. So the following day, we went to court to challenge the shutdown. And everywhere was agog. All the major papers had it on their.
But what was your mind? Why did you have to sue the federal government
Because I believe that I, as an individual, I have the right to inform and be informed. That right is guaranteed, under the suspended Constitution of Nigeria. It's also guaranteed under the United Nations, laws, and that was how, and the ECOWAS laws. So it was also just to harass the military that you can't just, do things with impunity. You have not accused us of anything. We've not said anything that anybody could not say on the street. That was our way. That was why. And I went to court, and as soon as that was reported, Abela summoned me to his house and, lambasted me, abused the hell out of me. Most of like him. He was very angry to the point of even saying, "Has your father ever owned a business or something like that?"
Oh my! I can imagine your
Yeah.
reaction to that.
And he then walked me out of his house and left. My head unbowed, and I'm waiting the next thing that he was going to do. And then a few days after, he then wrote in his own longhand an apology letter to Babangida. Babangida leaked it to the Times. They put it on their front page again. He had thought that after that apology, they were going to. Well, I think they now told you that no, it is not you who want to apologize. It's those guys who wrote those stories. So he now sent for me and and Bayo Nanuga and said that, look, you guys are good writers, young men. Just go on for the sake of my business and go and just do one or two paragraphs apologizing and expressing regret at your action. I had a right smile that day. I said, this man thinks we are fools, sir. So, okay, we said, thank you, sir. Okay, we went back to the office. I told Bayo and I went back that I'm not apologizing for anything. I'm going to resign. So, got to the office. I wrote my letter of resignation. Bayo also agreed to go to home. I went to drop it at his gate and then sent copies to all the media houses. And again, the following day, everywhere was agog.
Another breaking news.
Another breaking news that the guys, and of course, when our colleagues, Dapolo, Yomi, Shekende, Kunle Ajibade, heard about this, they all tendered their resignation letters.
So why did you think at that point resignation was the best thing, and then did you feel betrayed by your employer, MK Abiola?
Well, I do not think it's a story of betrayal. Abiola was IBB's friend at that time.
So it was a clash of interest.
They were very close. And here is a businessman. He had to protect his business. He was a major contractor of the military, and of the government. So I could understand his apprehensions about, what I've done and, what the repercussion was going to be for his business, or businesses rather. So I mean, I'm sympathetic towards him for that. So I wouldn't see it as a betrayal, but I saw it as well. Maybe this place can no longer contain me. Maybe
to move.
It's time to move. In fact, Bayo Ononuga concluded that he was going to leave Nigeria and go abroad. And to go and see what he could do abroad. And I felt with the kind of attitude that I've shown to the world, I do not see any media house employing me.
You said it in your book, and I remember you made reference to the fact that you thought that was the end
of my career as a journalist. Yeah.
But what changed your mind?
Yes. What changed my mind? Oh, by the way, let me mention that as at the time I also went to court, I was the chairman of the Nigerian Union of Journalists of that chapter. And I was popular for it because I brought a lot of innovations into that office. So you ask what changed my mind? A friend of mine, may God rest his soul, so Mr. Demo Adeleke, as soon as he heard about my ordeal, he came to the house and said, after me, I've read about what happened. I'm proud of you. This is the kind of thing we're taught in the university, the kind of reputation we're given. And he said, I know that you do not have money. He then brought out his checkbook and asked what my rent was for on a monthly basis. And I told him, he wrote a check to cover my rent for the next 6 months, which was, for me, a lifeline. And he then said, I should come and see him in the office the following day. I went to see him. He said, come and join my business. He was into importing frozen fish and distributing across the country. And so I went to see him and said, well, go and look for a cold room in your state in Ondo State and Ekiti State, I'll be giving you fish on credit. You can take to those places. So I thanked him. So, and I did that. I did that. I came to Ado Ekiti. I was able to pick up, but again, I quickly found out that was not my calling, because I was too trusting of people. The code room I rented in Akure developed problem when it was fully stocked with fish. There was no light, generator was not going to work, and that kind of thing. So I had to quickly sell off at a loss. So I now said, look, it's better for me not to even run code room. Let me talk to people who have code room. I can give attention to it, 24 hours of all of the time. And I met this guy. I went to see this guy. Got a fairly big courtroom. And entering there, I saw on his wall, Jesus saved, our Lord is your Savior. Give your life to Christ. So, I said, well, this is the best person to do business with. So I negotiated. I'll be bringing truckload of fish to you. You will sell, and then take your profit, put put the cost in this bank account. I did that for the first time, a truckload at that time. Which of course was a lot of money, and I left for Lagos. Second day, third day, nothing showed up in the account balance, and I kept calling. We kept saying, "No, the money withdraw, money withdraw." So a week after I gave him the fish, I had to come back to Akure to say, come. He said, everybody bought on credit. I said, no, that's not the way we sell fish now. If people buy on credit, they buy the money on credit. The following day when they want to collect another, they pay for yesterday's own. So that was, when you're home, that was how I kept harassing him until I got tired. My dad, who used to live in this town, there was very furious and agitated, and they decided to go and to take him to court. So my dad took him to court. My dad got a judgment and got the bailiffs to go and read his code room, only to find out that all the engine has been gone. It's only the carcass that was left. So he left that, as they say in Nigeria, to God. So I went back to Debo, and Debo just looked at me and laughed. Said, I knew that you were going to run to private. It's okay. It's good for you to. It's a baptism of fire. Babafemi, what you should do is that. Why don't you go and convince your colleagues to go back to what you are doing? And that is go and start a publication.
Okay, before you get into that, I want us to, still dwell on the aftermath of your resignation.
Yes.
How was life at that time? Because I want young people to be able to learn from this. And how were you able to manage that phase, the vacuum you had at that time where you were doing nothing? What was your experience? How were you?
No, it didn't take long for me to join my friend.
Okay.
I told you he paid my rent, and then immediately he asked me to join him. He was giving me allowances. I was selling fish where I could sell fish, and at least I had money to maintain myself. But my first revolt against the new thing I was doing was the fact of coming back home late in the night with a lot of naira notes, smelling fish, and and my body smelling and every kind of thing. So I revolted against that. I didn't like it, and then now on to the issue of being duped and all of that. So he just said immediately that I should go out. So I contacted Bayo Nonuga, and three of our colleagues, Kuri Ajibade Napolo Ojomi and Shekendi, and then be absorbed by the Guardian, African Guardian. Okay. Those guys were already engaged. Barry was not engaged. I was already engaged in doing something else. So we then started meeting and looking at the possibility of. It was a time the independent newspapers in England just come up and they were making waves, and then they wrote a book on how the paper was made or built, and I got a copy of that book and I started reading. And we wanted to then pattern whatever newspaper about the magazine after the independence of London. So that was it. We then tap on Another friend of ours, an ex-friend, who was an accountant, to help us put together a business plan. Yeah. So you had asked me about how we come about guerrilla journalism. So that was the road to guerrilla journalism. Gradually, we were inching towards it without planning, without
Anticipating what could be the
anticipating what could be the
consequence and
consequence.
all.
Yes.
But are you bothered as a veteran journalist?
Yes.
You've carved a niche for yourself in
Yes.
this area. Are you bothered that the crop of journalists we have now might not take interest in that because of the challenges and the risk involved?
I've given a lot of thought to this, and I've even done a write-up. You know, every phase of Nigerian history, I've had journalists standing up to be counted. If you look at the struggle against the colonial power, you find Abat Macaulay, you find Nnamdi Azikiwe, you find Chief Babafemi Ojudu, you find Anthony Enao, and several others, journalists, writers, editors, publishers, who rose up against the colonial masters, and they were able to force the colonial masters out of Nigeria, and they took power, and they become people in government, and that led us to the First Republic. When we had First Republic, and there were crises, and the military took over, that crisis led to the Civil War. Journalists also got involved heavily in assuring that Nigeria remained one. A lot of journalists most of the journalists were on the side of the federal government of Nigeria. Some journalists were on the side of the Biafra, but they collaborated heavily with the military at that time to ensure that Nigeria did not break up. So after that, then there was also the clamor for the military to go back to the barracks. Some journalists also championed that, and they fought vehemently. Many also got imprisoned. You've probably heard about the Abakiri case, when a young journalist, who wrote something critical about government in Rivers, had his head shaved with broken bottle by a young military officer who was a perpetrator of Rivers at that time. So journalists have always been there, and then our own wave came, which was that there was a lot of misgovernance by the military, oppression of the people, corruption and everything. And we then began to champion the rights of the people, the return to civil rule and all of that. We got badgered for it, arrested, sent on exile, killed, our municipalities raided and all of that. So that was another phase, And of course, in 1999, the military gave up power. And a phase ought to have followed, which is the phase whereby there will be journalists who will now, champion development and do things that will make our democracy endure. This is where we now find journalists lacking. The succeeding journalists, I think, pay more attention to their own personal survival. I want to be rich, I want to make money, I want to build a house, I want to buy a car, I want to send my children to very good schools. Those became their concerns. And that was why we are where we are today. There's nobody to then work assiduously for the next will, which is you do not need to practice guerrilla journalism in a democracy, but you need to be very critical. You need to do a lot of investigative work. You need to sharpen your instinct, to bring out those things that does not occur well, for the survival of that democracy. But we have not been able to find anybody or a group of who could do that. So I would, having said that, I'm very critical of the present day journalists. I think they have, largely, with the exception of a few, betrayed their calling.
What do you think has led to that? Could it be survival instinct,
survival instinct is
the
there.
environment, or what could that be?
Survival instinct is there. Then there is a not too good education that could have prepared them for the task ahead of them. The universities, from the moment Babangida introduced social adjustment program, the best of the lecturers left Nigeria to go and practice their trade abroad. Those who were left, and their products were not up to par, and that's what has led us to where we are today. So, if you are not properly grounded in philosophy, in economics, in the humanities, and you just come out to become a journalist, you just look at it as a meal ticket. And then there are some elements too who came and caused the rupture, who employ journalists to work in their organization, and they will not pay salaries, and they will tell them, you have your ID card, that's your meal ticket, go on. So you then go out on the street and do all kinds of funny things with your ID card, and never caring about principle, never caring about ethics, never caring about the country. You are thinking about only yourself. Meanwhile, the person who employs you also think about only himself and his businesses. So there was a lacuna or a difference between our generation and the new generation. There are things, for example, I would never do. If I'm being tempted to do those things, I will ask myself, what will Shoyinka feel about me if I do this kind of thing? What will Bekora Zonkuti feel about me? What will Fela Anikulapo feel about? What will Akabasharon feel about me? What will several others who have stood up for Nigeria at critical times, think about me? But today nobody cares about anything. They just do whatever they like. It's a shabamu kind of generation. The Husetos is similar to the area boy on the street. Just give it to me. Just give me. That's the kind of generation. That we left the profession for. It's unfortunate that it is so, but what can we do? We hope that another way will come one day to give their life to true journalism, to give their life to let principle guide their operations and ethics as well. Yeah, I've seen situations whereby people give information to journalists, go and send the information to the subject of the information. People will call black white, and they'll call white red. They don't care. I give a story of my experience in the Senate when I saw a lot of things occurring around me, and journalists are just ignoring those things. And I wasn't comfortable as a journalist. So why are these guys not reporting these things?
These are potential stories.
Yeah, these are potential stories that could help this democracy. And I call a few of them to my office and I say, look, gentlemen, come on, pick up these things. It will help us or whatever. And they left the meeting to go and tell the leadership. And a friend of mine called me one day and said, if you continue this one, get yourself killed. Those you had a meeting with told us that this is what you said. From that moment on, I stopped relating with them. If it was when I was practicing and I had a source at the National Assembly, I would become a star. I would just, it will be pumping me with information. I will be pumping my media office with it too. The papers will sell. It will be, the politicians will be more careful what they do, and that will help the nation and help everybody. But no longer so.
Now let's get to the News Magazine.
Yes.
Tempo. I know the episode that led to, co-founding
Yes.
these platforms. You've talked about
Yes.
that in your book. But my question is, these platforms were popular for guerrilla journalism, investigative journalism. Are you worried about continuity and then what could be the fate of investigative journalism? The kind of attention that the News Magazine PM used to give to that kind of aspect of journalism. Are you bothered that you might not have that anymore?
Yes, as I did earlier on, we don't even have the resources to do that anymore. We don't have the people who are that committed. We had young men and women who are ready to give their life to ensure that we published those stories that we published. We don't have them anymore. They are no longer there. They are not educated and prepared for such a task.
Is it the crop of journalists or what you call editorial policy of the platform?
No, it is the crop. If you have editorial policy, if you have that leadership, you don't even have people who can execute it. You don't. You don't. I've tried to do one or two things since then with some young men. It never works. They either betray you or they are just lackadaisical in their attitude to things. So it's it's just. I think the mistake we made would have been for us to immediately as soon as we are getting into democracy, try to acquire a radio and television license, and then move into the new media. I mean, nobody waits for 1 week to learn about a story now. When something is happening now, it's immediate. It's the speed of light. Yeah. So who then want to wait for another 1 week, as we used to do in those days? We ought to have quickly embraced social media, embrace television and radio. But as it is, we still have the news on the online. They still do some great reporting. And put things there. So
I'm worried it's looking like a normal news platform, unlike what it used to be.
Yes, the vibrancy of that period, it's no longer there. Many of us, the leading lights, have also moved on to do some other things. Bayo Nonuga is in the villa now. I'm in Ekiti here, tending to my goats and my flowers, and this morning I've been to the farm to plant corn, maize, and I do my writings. I do a lot of reading and all of that. Apollo Yomi is publishing Premium Times in Abuja. Sheyekende has since moved on to do his city people. So it's only Mr. Kule Ajibade who is left on ground. So
what's the plan for succession and continuity?
Well, there are still people there who started with us. Demola Adegbamigbe is still there, and a few others. They are trying their best within the limitations of resources and all of that. Yeah. But that idea, is already well immortalized. It's not something that can be erased in any way.